you actually gave up family time. I gave up what the event was supposed to be about for the sake of, it was money was part of it, right? But then the other part of it was I wanted to, yeah, this guy, I hadn't seen him I see him once a week. And if we don't train this week, then I'm not going to see him for another week. So that's 2 weeks gone that I don't help somebody. So it's very subtle, but these are the things that you have to be able to recognize, that you don't feel like you're sacrificing, but the question is, what's going to happen next? What's the next thing that you're going to give up when it comes to conceding to a client's request?
You're listening to Random Fit with hosts Wendy Batts and Ken Miller, winner of a Gold Markham Award for Digital Media.
Welcome to this episode of Random Fit with me, Ken Miller, and my co-host and friend, Miss Wendy Batts. Wendy, how you doing?
I'm great, Ken. How are you?
I am good. And for this episode, I'll say I'm double good, because I think with the topic we're going to talk about today, when it comes to personal trainers who, we're needing to set boundaries in fitness, right? And we need to protect time, energy, and expertise. And the reason why I'm excited about this one, I know you're a lot more excited about other topics that we talk about, but this one, I'm very, very interested in what you have to share, considering that when you and I travel and we talk to trainers that are veterans in the field or new to personal training, one of the things we talk about is setting boundaries. And how does a trainer, a personal trainer or strength coach even, how do they set the parameters and figure out, okay, well, what's the right balance between being a good service person, right, when it comes to personal training, and access. So, and I know you and I have had our discussions about, how available is available, how much access should I give my clients to me when I'm not with them in person or virtually, and helping them get to their goals. So I'm really curious to see what you have to say about this during this episode, Wendy.
Well, I think first it's important to say that we have to define and set expectations from the very start. Oftentimes people will say, well, they're so worried about the session and they're so worried about the cost. And what I end up doing is telling everyone when they're signing their waivers, inside the waivers, there's also an area of my expectations. And also I want to be crystal clear about, this is what I do. I want to help you throughout your fitness journey. If you have questions, I want you to send me a text. I want to know how your day is going. I want to know how you feel after a session. However, please keep in mind that I also have other sessions going on, maybe the next day, and I may not be able to get back to you, but I will get back to you within 24 hours, if not sooner. I want to set that expectation. So therefore, when I immediately text them back, then I'm going above and beyond, even though that's not what the boundaries I have set. I just wanted to let them know, because sometimes I'm in the air. Ken, you too. We're traveling all the way across the world sometimes, and we're on the plane for 19 hours. And even though now you can even get text messages on a plane, there are times when you're over the water and you have no internet. And so, that's actually the only time I think I can put my phone down and relax, so, and I'm sure you feel the same way. But, when a client will start to text and it's super late at night, it's because they're a night owl. But I get up really early in the morning and I really want to try to set an expectation to go to bed at a certain time. But because I've got like things going on with my family, I have to leave my phone on, because anything can happen and I have to make sure that I'm available when that phone rings. And so I can't put my phone on silent, and I do sleep next to it because it is my alarm. However, just because we have our phones there, if you don't set expectations and boundaries, I mean, you and I both have been kind of scolded at one point from our wonderful producer, because I'm on a 3-hour time difference.
Yeah.
And so when I think of something and I'm excited to share it with him, I may send him a text and it's 6:00 my time. I've already seen a client and he hasn't even gotten up to start his day. And he's like, dude, can you not do that? And I just don't think about it. And so it's very disrespectful on my part, because I have to now think back, okay, what time zone is everyone in? And is this okay to reach out to them? I think we set those from the start. we make those boundaries very crystal clear of when they should and should not reach out to you, and then you also need to be respectful in return.
Yeah, and I think part of that when you say you have it in your intake form, that's great because I have a version of that in my new client intake form because I'll tell them, if you're going to email me, text me, give me 36 hours to get back to you, and that's to cover the fact that if I am away, if I am traveling, if I am presenting, my clients know that my replies, they'll get to you within 36 hours, but it'll also be a matter of, I can't talk right now, I'm in wherever, or I'm doing this gig, or I'm with my family, but I'll be sure to get back to you as soon as I can with an appropriate answer, whatever this situation may be. So I also give myself, well, give me 36 hours, whether it's email or text message, because Wendy, and the way technology works today is that the responsiveness to email is the same as text message. It's just, it still comes through the phone. I still get the notification. It's just, an email can be a longer answer. So I just said, give me 36 hours and I'll get back to you if I need an extension for a more comprehensive answer. So I just tell them that. But Wendy, I think one of the things that why we're even having this discussion is because I think when it comes to personal trainers, and when it comes to setting those boundaries, there's a few things that I think just innately, just because of the nature of what we do in this industry, personal training, is that we want to help. We want to say that, yeah, call me anytime, just like you would a friend, right, Wendy? And it's one of those things where, okay, sure, and they'll take that, they'll take that and they'll run with it. But I think one of the things that we have to be able to do is, we want to say yes all the time, but we also have to be okay with and understand that you're not going to lose clients if you have to say no. Saying no is okay, and it's one of the biggest words that you can keep in your vocabulary, that I think as personal trainers we need to use more often. We don't use it often enough, as it's one word that helps protect you and your time when it comes to, you know, preserving you as a person, not just as a personal trainer. So I think we're just very altruistic as a personality type. We want to say yes, we want to be helpful, we want to help when and where we can. But saying no is one of those things we don't put out there enough, when it's all too easy to say yes because it fits your personality type.
Well, it definitely fits mine, but and I
Yeah,
actually made that. Remember, I think it was last year. That was one of my New Year resolutions, was to say no, to learn to
yeah,
say no, being
yeah,
okay with saying no, because I am a very big people person. I over accommodate as much, more than the next person, and I know that's a fault of mine. I mean, it's good for the other people that are receiving that, but I also know what it's doing to me, and it's taking me away from my family. But then I think too, one of the it kind of brings us into another one where there are also, it's very easy when you see a client 3 times a week and you're seeing them for an hour, that you get to know them on a very personal level. And that's great when you're helping someone on their fitness journey. You want to know what's going on in their life. You want to know how their weekend was, what they did activity wise, how did they do in their nutrition. Like, you start to kind of get a little personal, where then you start to feel like you know a lot about their family. And there are often times uh, that I'll get invited to go to a party or like a graduation, because I've known these people for many, many years. And that's not a bad thing, because I always say it's kind of like my extended family. However, you have to understand too that you have a business to run, and you want to make sure that your clients stay your clients. Now, if you're going to become more friends, maybe at that point, that's when you say, as a trainer, I shouldn't be the one that trains you anymore, because I'm so personally involved in your life that I'm more of a friend. And if you start to show up late, it's really hard, because I'm crossing that line. Or if they cancel at the last minute because they want to go do something else, but you had them scheduled and
yeah,
you can't cover that, they're going to be upset that you're going to charge them, because now you're doing friendly things. And so you have to make sure that if you're a trainer and there's someone that you want to date, do not train them. If a client wants to invite you to go do a lot of family things, then you need to sit there and think, what is the right move here? Because you don't want them to resent you, to be mad, and then all of a sudden you not only kind of lost almost like a friend, but then you're also losing and it's impacting your business.
Yeah.
So I don't do anything with my clients unless I'm going to support them and watch them at a game or something like that. That's different because it's still involving what I'm trying to make sure is happening on the court and in the gym that we're matching, or maybe I'm seeing something in play that I'm not seeing in the gym. That to me is something different. But we have a trainer and she does everything with her clients all the time. And then she gripes about them being late and not caring. And I'm like, well, then you need to have that conversation that you have a business. You have not set that boundary
Yeah.
because that's on you as the trainer.
Yeah. And that's a big point, Wendy, because there is a lot of sharing. And I mean, and I think one of the things about personal training is that, I've always touted to new personal trainers in the industry is like, what job, quote unquote job or occupation is there where you actually get to pick who you get to hang around with? So if I'm gonna, and clients can take that same perspective. They're gonna spend, thousands of dollars over the year to be with you, and you're their personal trainer. Yeah, they get a chance to see if there is some, if you guys do get along, there is some, I guess, camaraderie. But if you're gonna spend the time, you're going to spend the money, and sometimes you're going to spend that day talking to your personal trainer more than you talk to your spouse, right? How many times have you heard that when it's like, I spent more time talking to you than I did my own wife or husband? So there's a lot of that potential crossover as far as blurring the lines. But like you said, Wendy, you do have to talk, and you do have to say, hey, listen, I know that where we are today is different than where we were 6 months ago, but I am still your personal trainer, and I'm still going to hold you accountable. I'm going to still hold you to the same standards of what I expect from my clientele, as I hope you would expect me as your personal trainers. Because Wendy, you and I both know there's personal trainers out there too on the other side of that, on the other side of the coin, that'll say, oh, they'll understand if I'm late. Oh, they know where I am. They'll get it. I'll just buy them a coffee, and all is forgiven. But no, you wouldn't do that if you just met that person, if this was the first or second session. So why should you do it now? So making sure that the parameters are set, and as you said, Wendy, if we can't commit to our original agreement, then go somewhere else. I know plenty of other personal trainers you can go to that can get you good results as well. Not as good as me, but the accountability factor is a big aspect of what we do as personal trainers. And if we lose that, then what have you got? Right? That's the big question.
Well, and if you let it happen once, they're gonna do it over and over again. Like you said
Yeah.
about being late and the same. I mean, I to me, I have the motto that if I'm not 10 minutes early, I'm late because I want to get there. I want to set up my sessions. I want to make sure that I'm mentally prepared. I know who I'm
Mhm.
training. I've got it all set out, and therefore it's seamless as we go through the different transitions. And so it's one of those things. If somebody's late one time and you're like, okay, you're just shortening your session, then that's fine. But if you're like, well, you were 10 minutes late, I guess I can stay an additional 10 minutes to get the full hour in. Once you do
Right.
that once, then you need to do that with everyone. And then your whole schedule is messed up for the day. Like you need to stay on target on the books, because if you don't set those boundaries from the beginning, then unfortunately people do, friends or not, take advantage of you. Sometimes they don't mean to, but it's just how it is. And that kind of leads into another one where over time, if you end up extending your hours and you end up changing your schedule and you're doing things because your friends now that were your clients can only come in at a certain time, but that was a time that you had blocked off for yourself, then you start to lose your own self because you're just working too much. And you guys have heard my stories multiple times. I lost who I was trying to help everybody else. And so it's very important for your mental health, your physical health, and your family health, if you will, to find an even balance and stick to those boundaries that you're setting on. These are my work hours. this is my time, and then this is my time for my family, friends, and whatever else
Yeah.
I've got going on. You start to cross those board or those lines once, then it just continues to happen. And I'm telling you, out of experience, it is easy to happen. And it's not about the money, it's just you want to help everyone, and you can't help
Right.
everyone, but
Right.
you got to
Yeah.
take it yourself.
And I mean, and I think for personal trainers who are listening to this episode of Random Fit with both Wendy Batts and Ken Miller, is that sometimes it's a slow creep. Like you don't realize you're doing it. And I think one example I can bring up from that standpoint is a client wants to, hey, can we just go? Are you available at 3 o'clock? And then if I had well, in this particular example, I had an obligation, I had to be somewhere at 4, a little bit after 4. And I wound up making the concession instead of going home and then going to this event with my family. I called my wife and I just said, hey, you know what? I'll just meet you there. My client rescheduled, so I'm going to be ending at 4 o'clock now. So I don't have time to make it home if we're going to be there on time as a family. But you guys go to this event and I will be there. I'll be a little late, but you guys get there on time. So I kind of, I mean, and I made that little sacrifice, that little concession, and it, I mean, I was there, I was late, but it wasn't the event that it could have been, because now I actually gave up family time. I gave up what the event was supposed to be about for the sake of, it was, money was part of it, right? But then the other part of it was I wanted to, yeah, this guy, I hadn't seen him in a, I see him once a week, and if we don't train this week, then I'm not going to see him for another week. So that's 2 weeks gone that I don't help somebody. So it's very subtle, but these are the things that you have to be able to recognize, that you don't feel like you're sacrificing, but the question is, what's going to happen next? What's the next thing that you're going to give up when it comes to conceding to a client's request, as innocuous as it may be? But it's still something. You're not preserving yourself when you say yes to these little things. So watch the little yeses, because they wind up being big yeses over time.
And if you have kids, guys, they see it. I mean, one of Braden's things that he wrote when he was a young boy, you know how like the teacher would fill out like your mom's favorite color is this, and your mom is this age or whatever, and it's like 100 years old, and her favorite color is something that it's not, and she loves to cook. I do not like to cook, but like one of the things that my kid had told the teacher to write down. Now, again, this is when before he could write, was my mom's favorite thing to do is work. And I mean, that literally
Yeah.
shattered my heart, because there are same thing times where there's a client running late, or there's a client, and Ken, you know, this just happened this past weekend. There was a client that called me in tears. She's a professional athlete. She's like, I need you. And she lives in LA. I am on the East Coast, and I got on a plane. I flew to LA, and worked on her, and I flew home the same day, and then went to see my clients. And so, you know, it's one of those things. I was in the air for 9 hours just to see her for 2.5. And so, was that worth it? It's because of the tears. I had a problem saying no, but I also too was trying to help everyone. And instead of spending time with my family on a weekend, I ended up flying out to try to help someone else. And so I struggle with a lot of this. And so that's why I wanted to do it, because when I go through and I talk about it, it just reminds me that I need to set better boundaries for myself. But before we get into the next one, Ken, I want to say that this episode of Random Fit is brought to you by NASM1, the membership for trainers and coaches. Members enjoy unlimited access to hundreds of career resources, get the Edge app to schedule and program clients, enjoy half off all certifications and specializations, access free CEUs, and more. All this for just $35 a month. Go to nasm.org/membership to learn more about NASM1. So Ken, one of the boundaries that I want to talk about, and I want you to kind of answer this, because as you have your own brick and mortar facility, and I am lucky because I can come in and out. I just pay and then I
Yeah.
can leave, and I don't have to worry about some of the stuff that you do. But as an owner and as a leader of multiple 1099 trainers that come into your facility, how do you, especially on setting boundaries, how do you help kind of over I don't know the word I'm looking for, but how do you support the policies that you have set in place? How do you set, certain limitations to make sure that trainers aren't being taken advantage of with clients and vice versa? Like, how do you manage that process and really be that leader that the trainers need?
Um, you know, I have some great trainers in the facility, and there are some great examples of trainers that are within the walls of the training station that who say no, and then those that say yes all the time. And when it comes to that, I'll make my observations, and like even this morning, I said, "Hey, you were on the schedule for this client at this time. You didn't come in. I was going to check in on you and hope that everything was okay, because sometimes things happen, like you know with this particular trainer, she had car issues, so I just want to make sure that she's okay, and then that nothing like that is the issue. But she's like, well, my client slept in, she canceled, and so I just stayed at home, and everything was fine. But this is also a trainer that has had situations where she has moved her day around and say, hey, and I've heard conversations of, let me see if I can move somebody to get you in here at this time, and that way they're squeezing somebody in, they're getting 2 sessions instead of one during that afternoon. But I like to say, it's like, hey, out of respect for everybody, your other clientele, your other client, and that client, you don't want to set false hopes or false expectations on what you can do. You got to be real. You got to be realistic about what your capacity is for availability. Because the second they say, hey, are you available at 3 o'clock this afternoon? And if you had something going on, it's like, well, let me see if I can make some changes there. Then, now they think they have you. Now they think you're on call, if you will. And that's where I say, if you're going to do something like that, just make sure they understand, like, listen, this is, I'm saying yes to this because I am available, or I was able to make it work, and there was no stress on the other parts of my calendar. But the second you say, well, I was able to move things around, I was able to make concessions in my calendar, I was able to do this, do that, then they say, okay, this is somebody, it's good that they have that idea that, okay, this person really wants to help me. But when they start to cross over to that fact that, oh, this person will move heaven and earth to get me in for a session today, and that's where you start to have the issues. But with new trainers, I like to say, hey man, I'm see you're all over the map on your schedule. It's like, well, this is when they can come in. It's like, well, no, you need to set, when do you want to work, when can you work? Because you're going to burn out. It's going to cost you. If you're that person, if you're that personal trainer, your last client ends at 9 o'clock and your first client starts at 5 o'clock. Now I'm really worried about your sleep. I'm really worried about your longevity within the field of personal training. So if I see things like that, I'll just say, hey, when are you sleeping? Right? Or even things that I've learned from my own self. Hey, you know what? When do you get your workouts? I'm not in here 24 hours a day, but when do you get your workouts? And not just more to figure out who they are as a person, but it's like, are you taking care of yourself? And are you scheduling that into your day? Because if like a friend of mine said once, is like, if you can't take care of number one, you can't take care of number two. Now, take that as you will, but if you don't take care of yourself, this is the message. If you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of somebody else. And if you keep making concessions, you're not taking care of yourself. And that's something that I actually say to a lot of personal trainers. You have to take care of yourself first before you can take care of your clients. And at that, you want to take care of your clients well.
100%. And if you're not healthy emotionally, physically, all of the things, then it's not good for anyone. But that also kind of, I think, leads into another one that I think we really need to be careful with, because we are with our clients so often, and we get information from them about their health and about their children and their family and their goals. And we're constantly assessing them. We're trying to help them move, feel better. I'm a trainer that asked, is it okay if I touch you so I can squeeze like their shoulder blades, or I give them feedback, tactile feedback by using my hands. Again, you have to get permission to touch first. And if they say yes, you start to kind of have this rapport and bond, right? They believe in you, they trust in you. Well, then they start sharing some different stories. And especially over a long time, like a long-term relationship that you have with some of these clients, because you've seen them for so long, they become very dependent on you, like emotionally. They socially become dependent. They want you to do things, and then you're constantly saying, you know what, I really can't. I have to be with family today, or I appreciate the invitation, but I've got some other obligations, or I hope you have a really good time. Like, this is a really good time for you to be with your family. Like, I try not to commit to those. However, emotionally too, if you're listening to every single person that comes through and you're listening to all their problems, it becomes emotionally draining. And so I always kid around when I'm teaching the workshops that I make them too tired to talk. And I do that for a reason. So therefore this doesn't hit home, because I was in that spot where I would give them longer breaks and then they would start talking, and then I'm like, no, we got to get moving. And they wanted to finish their story. Or it got
Yeah.
to the point where, you started learning more about them in areas you didn't want to know anything about. And you start to see these other people out on the street and you're knowing their dirty laundry, and it just isn't healthy. It's just not healthy. So remember, if somebody's coming to you, you're not a licensed therapist. You are a personal trainer that's trying to help them on their fitness journey. You're not there to help them mentally. And it's okay to say, listen, I want to keep you targeted here. Take that aggression or what you're feeling right now, and I want you to put it in this next set that we're going to do on the leg press, or chest, or whatever it is that we're doing, because I want you to feel better. And if we keep talking about it, like, it's not good for
Yeah.
either one of us. So you can
Yeah.
respectfully say that, or just tell them, like, listen, you really should go talk to someone about this. I'm not licensed to help you. I don't want to give you bad information, but you're to the point now where I think if you talk to a therapist, they could actually give you really good advice to help you through whatever it is. And it's okay to do that, but set the boundaries. If not, you're drained when you get home. Oh,
Yeah. Oh, Wendy, sometimes it's sometimes I feel like when clients come to the workout session, that they're looking for that hour to unload that type of information. And I I try to manage the session, because if I know that there's a trigger in your day or in your life, I stay 100 miles away from that topic, right? So for some people, it's like I don't ask about their kids, because their kids are just, it's not a good situation, right? It's sad that that's happens out there, but I don't bring up certain topics because I know it's going to distract them, and I can tell in their face, their level of focus on their training session, that it's a distraction. So I try to manage what topics that we could or should be talking about, if it's not going to be about exercise, to things that are, that puts them in a good state of mind. For a lot of people, it's work. They don't like their work. They don't like their job. They don't like the supervisor. They don't like a certain coworker. So I don't, I'll steer clear of work altogether if there's any one of those things that we might trip over. But I mean, you get, like you said to Wendy, during that training session is about them. It's about them reaching and attaining their goals, getting, you know, stronger, more powerful, more endurance, whatever it is. And then that's where it's like, yeah, like you said, it's like, all right, yeah, you're chatting a little too much. Let's go. Here you go. Since you feel that good right now, I'm going to add 5 more pounds on that dumbbell, because obviously your focus is somewhere else and not on the dumbbell. I need your attention. I need your presence here and now. And that's where the boundaries, we've got to instill it. I mean, I may not say it outright, but I'm putting up defenses by not going in that direction, or even broaching that topic.
well, Ken, I'm gonna tell an honest story where you can also lose clients because of that,
Yeah.
and not because you're being honest, but it puts you in a bad situation where you're going to end up having to fire clients if you're not careful. And this true story, I had this gentleman that I trained for a really long time, and I loved everything about him. He was a great person. He was a wonderful father, great business person. He was married. and he wanted me to train his wife. I was like, fantastic. And so I would work with his wife, and I would hear stories about what he was doing or what she was doing. And it was just hard when I was going through those two different sessions, because I'm like, you know what? He's super focused in the gym doing what he wants to do, or she's super focused in the gym. And then the other one's kind of talking smack about them. And I'm like, and I knew things that I shouldn't know and didn't want to know, because they were just opening up. And I didn't stop it until I ended up having to train the girlfriend as well. So it got to the point where I'm like, I can't do this. And I fired all three. I'm like, I can't do this. And you guys all need to sit down and figure life out, because I can't be a part of this anymore. And again, I lost somebody that I had a really good relationship for a long time. I started to bond with the wife a little bit. We were getting her on track, and her fitness journey was there. And then it was just like everything was all, oh, I know you won't say anything to her. Well, I can't do this. Like, I can't.
Yeah.
So just be careful, because those things can happen and it will put you in a really bad situation. So just be very crystal clear. Um, Ken, what are your thoughts? I mean, I know you do this and I still do this too, just to change the topic a little bit, but on the blurred lines with virtual training, because more trainers, obviously, they pivoted, if you will, when the pandemic hit. I still train a couple people virtually because they have their own gym at home, and I don't need to be with them in person, especially because they live a little far. How do you handle the setting boundaries digitally?
Um, it's I tried to. I think it's a little bit more cut and dry, because if I'm seeing someone digitally, I know the parameters. There's a reason why we're digital, right? It's either because of work hours, they can't make the commute. They're in a different time zone. I mean, as far as distance wise, they're farther. So our parameters will be more set, just like you and I, Wendy. Like, I know you're 3 hours ahead of me, so I'm not going to send you a message at 9 o'clock at night, because I know it's midnight your time, right? So when it comes to virtual, it's just I have to keep the discipline of when I reply, when I reply to their text messages or emails, or vice versa, and I'll just make sure that, it's a lot easier, because it's on me, and when I can actually get onto my phone, or behind my computer, and they'll know. And then, I'll have situations where I'm in another city. They know that I'm doing another project. They know that, and then, that manages. Okay, they'll give me a little bit of buffer, and I'll reply when I need to. But um, as far as managing communications outside the session, but within session now, it's focused, because there has to be a lot more verbal communication about the exercise itself, because I'm not there, like you said, Wendy. I can't put my fingers on their shoulder blades and tell them, to squeeze their shoulder blades together. I can't do that. So I have to get more information verbally or visually, because that tactile, I can't change my vantage point every time I need to see something. So these sessions wind up being more focused, because I have to gather more information from one less vantage point, which is the three-dimensional in-person vantage point. So I think virtually it's more cut and dry, because I have to ask you a question and you have to respond, right? And I don't know. That's basically the one of the main differences from that vantage point.
Yeah. I mean, just if we were to kind of wrap up what we've talked about, and the point that I know Ken and I are really trying to make is we've been through all of this before. And I think it's really important that you set boundaries, especially if you're new and you're worried about it. It's okay to say no, but if you set the boundaries up front, you put it in writing, the client knows what the expectations are, when they can and can't contact you. You want to be supportive, you want to be their cheerleader, but you also have to make sure too that you're not reaching out to them at certain hours, cheering them on in the background, because that opens the door. You're kind of setting the precedence, like, oh, it is okay to communicate after hours. And so you want to make sure too that whatever boundaries you're setting for your personal life, you make sure that you don't cross that, meaning that if you have specific hours, you want to make sure that you're working within those hours and you don't start extending it, or you will burn out. In order to be a successful trainer, you have to take care of yourself first. Your family and yourself come first, and everything else should be
Yeah.
secondary. And you always hear when you die, no one says, "Oh, she worked all the time, and glad that she finished this project." No, it's one of those things where you want someone to talk about who you were as a person and who you were as a mother or a friend or whatever. So I think that, the biggest thing is it's okay to say no, and it's okay to be strong in your opinion, and do not cross the lines on what's your profession and your personal life. You've got to keep them separated.
I I think there's a song in there somewhere too. Got to keep them separated. Um, Wendy, thanks for your insight. I really appreciate you sharing your work history when it comes to setting that boundaries, because it's a struggle, and it's something I got to work on every day because I want to say yes, but no has been my better friend over the last couple of years. So thanks for confirming that I'm doing the right thing.
Well,
So for those of you that are listening to both Wendy Batts and I, Ken Miller here on Random Fit, thank you so much for being here for this episode. Hopefully you took at least one or maybe two points that you're going to find useful for you and how you manage your business and your clientele. So if you liked what you listened to today, like, follow, subscribe, download, share, and give us a 5 out of 5 if and when you can. But more importantly, let us know what you want us to talk about and discuss on a future episode of Random Fit. So until next time, everybody, take care and be well.